The conference hall of Station Nexus 7 fell silent as Director Elena Reeves stepped onto the platform. At 28 standard years, she was the youngest director the Galactic Commerce Guild had ever appointed, and certainly the first human to hold such a position. Her dark hair was pulled back in a practical bun, and her gray suit bore the simple insignia of Earth's diplomatic corps dot in the front row. Ambassador Creether of the Vaxian Empire shifted his massive bulk, his 4 arms crossed in obvious disdain. The reptilian giant stood nearly 3 meters tall, his scales gleaming like polished obsidian under the station's artificial lights. His species had dominated this sector for 6 centuries, and he had no intention of letting some primitive mammal change that. Director Reeves. Creether's voice boomed across the hall before Elena could begin her presentation. I must object to this farce. Your species has been spacefaring for barely 2 centuries. You lack the experience, the wisdom, and frankly, the biological fortitude to oversee operations of this magnitude. Elena met his gaze calmly, her expression betraying nothing. Ambassador Creether, I appreciate your concerns. If you'll allow me to, allow? Creether rose to his full height, his tail lashing behind him. I do not allow anything. I decide. And I have decided that your appointment is an insult to every established species in this guild. He turned to address the assembled delegates. Humans are weak. They live brief, frantic lives. They break easily and tire quickly. This one looks like she might shatter if I merely raised my voice. Several delegates shifted uncomfortably. The Metherian representative, a being of crystalline silicon, chimed softly in agreement. Others remained silent, watching to see how the human would respond. Elena descended from the platform, walking directly toward Creether. She stopped just outside his reach, tilting her head back to look up at him. When she spoke, her voice carried clearly through the hall, steady and cool. You're right about some things, Ambassador. Humans do live shorter lives than most species here. Our bodies are fragile compared to your armored hide. We don't have your strength, your natural weapons, or your centuries of space travel experience. She paused, letting the words settle. But you're wrong about what that means. Creether laughed, a harsh sound like grinding stone. Enlighten me, little mammal. What am I wrong about? You assume our limitations make us weak. They don't. They make us efficient. Elena pulled out her datapad, projecting holographic charts into the air between them. In the last quarter, human-managed stations have increased productivity by 47%. Our conflict resolution times are down 63%. Resource allocation efficiency is up 51%. Do you know why? She didn't wait for an answer. Because we don't have the luxury of time. We can't afford to let problems fester for decades while committees deliberate. We can't wait 3 centuries to implement reforms. We solve problems now because we don't have forever. Creether's eyes narrowed. Impressive statistics. Numbers can be manipulated. Then let's talk about something harder to manipulate. Elena's voice sharpened. 6 months ago, the mining colony on Hesper-9 suffered a critical reactor failure. The Vaxian response team estimated it would take 4 weeks to evacuate and 6 months to repair. Human engineers had it operational in 11 days, with 0 casualties. 3 months ago, when the trade route through the Corvax Nebula collapsed due to spatial anomalies, your mathematicians said finding a new route would take years of calculations. Our AI-assisted navigators found 3 alternative routes in 72 hours. She stepped closer, undaunted by Creether's imposing presence. You call us fragile? Maybe, but fragility teaches you to be careful, to plan ahead, to build systems that don't rely on individual strength. You call us short-lived? That brevity gives us urgency. We don't waste time on posturing or protocol when lives are at stake. Bold words, Creether growled. from someone who could barely survive my world's atmosphere. You're absolutely right. I'd last maybe 3 minutes in your toxic swamps. Elena's eyes glinted. But here's what you don't understand about humans, Ambassador. We don't need to survive your world. We learned centuries ago how to reshape environments to suit us. We turned deserts into gardens and frozen wastelands into cities. We don't adapt to hostile conditions, we overcome them. That's the human way. The hall was absolutely silent now. Every delegate leaned forward, captivated. Creether's chest rumbled with barely contained anger. So the weak creature thinks herself superior. No, Elena said quietly. I think we're different. And I think that difference is exactly what this guild needs right now. For 600 years, the Vagzian Empire has dominated this sector through strength and intimidation. It's worked, I won't deny that. But the galaxy is changing, Ambassador. New species are joining the guild every year. Resources are becoming scarcer. Old conflicts are reigniting. The guild doesn't need a strong man anymore. It needs someone who can make hard decisions quickly, who can innovate instead of relying on tradition, who can build bridges instead of walls. She gestured to the assembled delegates. Every species here has something unique to offer. The Metherians' computational abilities, the Aurorans' artistic vision, your people's strength and resilience. But humans? We're generalists. We're survivors. We're the species that looked up at the stars from a tiny blue world and decided that infinite darkness couldn't stop us. We're the ones who turned our weaknesses into weapons and our fears into fuel. Elena turned back to Creether, her voice firm. So yes, I'm young. Yes, I'm fragile. Yes, I'll be dead long before you've even reached middle age. But in the decades I have, I'm going to revolutionize how this guild operates, whether you like it or not. For a long moment, Creether stared down at her. Then, slowly, something changed in his expression, perhaps respect, perhaps merely calculation. He inclined his massive head slightly. Very well, Director Reeves. Show us what humanity can do. But know this, I will be watching. And if you fail, I will be the first to call for your removal. Elena smiled, extending her hand in the human gesture of agreement. I wouldn't expect anything less, Ambassador. And when I succeed, I expect you to be the first to admit you were wrong. Creether looked at her hand for a moment, then carefully enclosed it in one of his massive claws. The gesture was surprisingly gentle. Perhaps, he rumbled, there is more to your species than I credited. Time will tell. As the assembly erupted in discussion, Elena returned to the platform. She had won the first battle, but she knew the real challenge was just beginning. The change she represented wasn't coming, it had already arrived, and the galaxy would never be quite the same.